Good morning, everyone. Let me start with a simple question that can change your life. Who is the person you talk to the most every single day? It's not your parents, not your friends, not your boss, it's you. From the moment you wake up till you fall asleep, there is a voice inside your head. That voice can either build you or break you. And today, I want to invite you to try a powerful experiment. For the next 7 days, talk to yourself like a winner. Every human being lives with a constant companion that never leaves them for even a single moment, their inner voice. From the second you wake up to the moment you fall asleep, this voice is commenting, judging, encouraging, or discouraging everything you do. Most people underestimate its power, yet it quietly shapes confidence, decisions, emotional strength, and ultimately the direction of life. The quality of this inner dialogue determines whether you show up to challenges with courage or with fear. When your inner voice is weak, negative, or self-critical, it drains your energy before the world even gets a chance to test you. When it is strong, supportive, and intentional, it becomes a powerful source of momentum that pushes you forward even in difficult moments. Your mind does not clearly distinguish between words spoken out loud and words spoken silently within. It absorbs both with equal seriousness. If you repeatedly tell yourself that you are not capable, not talented, or not lucky enough, your mind accepts this as a fact and begins to operate within those limitations. Over time, these internal statements shape your identity. You stop trying, stop taking risks, and stop believing in possibilities, not because you truly lack ability, but because your inner voice has already decided the outcome. In contrast, when you consciously choose words that empower you, your mind starts aligning with growth. It looks for solutions instead of excuses and opportunities instead of obstacles. What makes the inner voice so influential is its consistency. External motivation comes and goes, but self-talk is relentless. You hear it during success and failure, in private moments of doubt, and in public moments of pressure. If that voice constantly reminds you of past mistakes, compares you to others, or predicts failure, it becomes difficult to move forward with confidence. The pressure does not come from the situation itself, but from the internal resistance created by negative self-talk. On the other hand, when your inner voice is trained to be supportive, it becomes a stabilizing force. It helps you stay calm under stress, focused under pressure, and resilient in the face of setbacks. Professional growth, leadership, and excellence are deeply connected to inner dialogue. High performers are not free from fear or self-doubt. They simply manage it better through intentional self-communication. When challenges arise, they do not panic internally. Instead, they remind themselves of past resilience, skills, and preparation. This internal reassurance allows them to respond thoughtfully rather than react emotionally. Over time, this creates a sense of self-trust. You begin to believe that no matter what happens, you can handle it. That belief alone dramatically improves performance and decision-making. The inner voice also influences emotional well-being. Harsh self-criticism creates constant mental tension, leading to stress, anxiety, and burnout. Many people are exhausted not because they work too hard, but because they are mentally attacking themselves throughout the day. Encouraging self-talk, however, acts as emotional support. It reduces internal conflict and allows energy to be directed toward meaningful action. When you treat yourself with respect in your thoughts, you create mental clarity and emotional balance. This is not about ignoring reality or avoiding accountability. It is about correcting mistakes without destroying self-worth. Mastering your inner voice is not about pretending everything is perfect. It is about choosing language that strengthens rather than weakens you. Words like, I can learn, I will improve, and I can manage this create psychological safety, which allows growth to happen. Over time, these words rewire thought patterns, build confidence, and establish a strong internal foundation. When your inner voice becomes your ally, motivation no longer depends on external validation. You carry your strength within, ready to face challenges with clarity, composure, and purpose. Failure, mistakes, and setbacks are unavoidable parts of any meaningful journey. Yet what separates high achievers from those who give up is not the absence of failure, but the way they respond to it internally. In difficult moments, most people become their own harshest critics. They replay errors, label themselves as incapable, and mentally punish themselves for not being perfect. This self-inflicted criticism drains motivation and weakens emotional resilience. Winners, however, follow a very different internal process. When they fall, they do not insult themselves. They encourage themselves. Understanding that growth requires patience, learning, and emotional discipline. Encouragement does not mean ignoring responsibility or lowering standards. It means correcting mistakes without destroying confidence. When a person fails and immediately attacks their self-worth, the mind shifts from problem-solving to self-defense. Energy that could be used to improve is wasted on guilt, shame, and fear. Winners avoid this trap by separating the event from their identity. A mistake becomes feedback, not a verdict on their ability. This mindset keeps them engaged, focused, and willing to try again rather than retreat in self-doubt. The way individuals speak to themselves after a setback determines whether failure becomes a stopping point or a stepping stone. Negative self-talk creates emotional weight that slows progress. It amplifies fear of future failure and reduces willingness to take risks. Encouraging self-talk, on the other hand, creates psychological safety. It allows the mind to remain open, flexible, and adaptive. When people reassure themselves during setbacks, they recover faster and return to action with renewed clarity. This is not optimism without effort. It is resilience supported by intentional inner communication. Professional environments especially test this ability. Pressure, deadlines, competition, and expectations can magnify errors. In such situations, self-criticism may feel like accountability, but in reality, it often undermines performance. Winners understand that sustainable excellence requires self-respect. They hold themselves accountable through constructive reflection rather than emotional punishment. Instead of saying, "I failed," they ask, "What can I improve next time?" This subtle shift keeps confidence intact while still driving improvement. Encouragement during failure also strengthens long-term discipline. When the process becomes painful due to constant self-blame, motivation fades. People begin to associate effort with emotional discomfort rather than growth. Winners create a different association. They treat setbacks as part of the training process, not as proof of inadequacy. This mindset allows them to stay committed even when results are delayed. Over time, this consistency compounds into mastery, not because they avoid failure, but because they remain engaged through it. Another important aspect of self-encouragement is emotional recovery. Failure often triggers disappointment, frustration, or embarrassment. If these emotions are met with internal hostility, recovery becomes slow and exhausting. Encouraging self-talk acts as emotional first aid. It stabilizes the mind, allowing individuals to regain balance and perspective. This emotional stability improves decision-making and prevents impulsive reactions that often worsen situations. Ears do not suppress emotions. They manage them with awareness and compassion. Encouraging oneself after failure also builds inner trust. Each time you face a setback and respond with patience instead of criticism, you reinforce the belief that you can handle adversity. This trust becomes a powerful asset in future challenges. You stop fearing failure because you know you will support yourself through it. This confidence reduces anxiety and increases willingness to pursue ambitious goals. Over time, success becomes not just about outcomes, but about the strength of the internal relationship you build with yourself through every rise and fall. The human mind is highly responsive to repetition. Thoughts that are repeated consistently do not remain as simple ideas, they gradually transform into beliefs. These beliefs influence perception, behavior, and emotional responses, often without conscious awareness. When individuals repeatedly tell themselves certain narratives about their abilities, circumstances, or potential, the mind begins to treat those narratives as reality. This is why self-talk holds such significant power. The words you consistently use internally shape how your mind interprets challenges, opportunities, and even your own identity. When negative statements are repeated, the mind adapts to operate within those limits. Phrases such as, "I'm not good at this," "I always fail," or "this is beyond me," may initially feel like momentary frustrations. But with repetition, they become deeply embedded assumptions. The brain then begins filtering experiences to confirm these assumptions. Efforts decrease, confidence weakens, and even small obstacles feel overwhelming. This is not because capability has diminished, but because the mind has been conditioned to expect defeat. Over time, this internal conditioning becomes self-fulfilling, reinforcing the very outcomes the individual fears. In contrast, repeated positive and constructive self-talk trains the mind to expect progress. Statements that emphasize effort, learning, and resilience gradually shift mental focus. When someone consistently tells themselves that they can improve, adapt, and find solutions, the mind starts searching for ways to support those beliefs. Attention shifts from limitations to possibilities. Instead of becoming paralyzed by uncertainty, the individual becomes more proactive, more patient, and more open to learning. This shift does not eliminate difficulty, but it changes how difficulty is experienced and managed. Neuroscience supports this process. Repeated thoughts strengthen specific neural pathways in the brain, making certain responses more automatic over time. When positive self-statements are practiced consistently, they become easier to access during moments of stress or pressure. This is why individuals who consciously train their self-talk often appear calm and confident under challenging conditions. Their mind has been conditioned to respond with constructive language rather than panic or self-doubt. The response feels natural because it has been rehearsed internally countless times. Consistency is more important than intensity in shaping belief. Occasional positive affirmations cannot overpower years of negative internal dialogue. The mind responds to patterns, not isolated moments. This is why deliberate repetition is essential. Each time a person chooses words that reinforce capability and growth, they are reinforcing a mental framework that supports long-term development. Over time, these repeated statements begin to feel authentic rather than forced. Confidence becomes internalized, no longer dependent on external validation or immediate results. This process also influences behavior. Beliefs shape actions, and actions shape outcomes. When the mind believes in progress, individuals are more likely to persist, seek feedback, and invest effort. They approach challenges with curiosity instead of fear. Even setbacks are processed differently, as the mind interprets them as part of a learning curve rather than proof of failure. This behavioral shift increases the likelihood of improvement and success, further strengthening the original belief. The cycle becomes self-reinforcing in a positive direction. Importantly, effective self-talk is not about unrealistic claims or ignoring reality. It is about choosing language that supports growth rather than limitation. Statements grounded in effort, adaptability, and patience align the mind with constructive action. When repeated consistently, they reshape internal expectations and emotional responses. Over time, the mind begins to operate from a foundation of belief rather than doubt. What once required conscious effort becomes instinctive, allowing individuals to navigate challenges with confidence, clarity, and sustained motivation. Every challenge carries two possibilities. It can either weaken a person or refine them. The difference lies not in the difficulty of the situation, but in the internal response to it. When problems arise, many people instinctively ask, "Why is this happening to me?" This question places the mind in a passive, victim-oriented state. It focuses attention on frustration, unfairness, and helplessness. In contrast, individuals who grow consistently under pressure shift their internal dialogue toward curiosity and responsibility. They ask what the situation is teaching them and how it can be used to improve. This single shift in self-talk transforms problems from emotional burdens into valuable sources of insight. When the mind frames a problem as an attack, stress intensifies and clarity diminishes. Emotional reactions take priority. Why? Over rational thinking, making it harder to assess options or take effective action. Negative self-talk reinforces this reaction by exaggerating the threat and minimizing personal capability. As a result, individuals feel overwhelmed even by manageable challenges. However, when self-talk is intentional and constructive, the mind remains grounded. Viewing problems as lessons reduces emotional resistance and creates mental space for analysis, planning, and decision-making. Lessons emerge only when attention moves from blame to understanding. Asking what a situation can teach encourages reflection rather than self-judgment. It allows individuals to identify patterns, gaps in preparation, or areas requiring improvement. This reflective process strengthens self-awareness and promotes personal growth. Instead of repeating the same mistakes, individuals become more adaptive. Each challenge adds to their experience, gradually increasing competence and confidence. Over time, this approach builds a sense of progress even during periods of difficulty. Professional growth often depends on this ability to reframe obstacles. In high-pressure environments, problems are inevitable. Missed targets, unexpected changes, and setbacks test emotional maturity and leadership potential. Those who respond with frustration or defensiveness limit their effectiveness. Those who approach challenges with a learning mindset remain composed and solution-oriented. Their self-talk supports accountability without self-criticism, enabling them to address issues constructively. This not only improves outcomes, but also earns trust and respect from others. Viewing problems as lessons also strengthens resilience. When difficulties are interpreted as temporary and meaningful, endurance increases. Individuals are less likely to give up because they perceive value in persistence. Each setback becomes a source of feedback rather than discouragement. This perspective reduces fear of failure, encouraging experimentation and innovation. Over time, the accumulation of lessons builds a strong internal foundation that supports long-term success. The individual becomes more confident in their ability to navigate uncertainty and complexity. This approach also improves emotional regulation. Problems often trigger anxiety or frustration, which can cloud judgment. Constructive self-talk acts as an emotional anchor, preventing escalation. By focusing on learning, individuals maintain balance and perspective. This calmness allows for clearer communication, better collaboration, and more thoughtful decision-making. Emotional stability becomes a competitive advantage, particularly in environments where pressure is constant and stakes are high. Transforming problems into lessons requires consistent practice. The mind naturally gravitates toward comfort and certainty, making this shift initially challenging. However, repeated exposure to constructive self-talk gradually changes default responses. Over time, curiosity replaces complaint, and responsibility replaces blame. Problems no longer feel like threats to identity or competence. Instead, they become opportunities for refinement. This mindset does not eliminate difficulty, but it ensures that every challenge contributes to growth rather than stagnation. Confidence is often misunderstood as a personality trait that some people naturally possess while others lack. In reality, confidence is a skill that is developed through consistent internal behavior, not a feeling that appears on its own. Many individuals wait for confidence to arrive before taking action, believing they must first feel ready or certain. This mindset creates stagnation because confidence rarely precedes action, it follows it. What truly builds confidence is the R. Repeated practice of speaking to oneself with assurance, clarity, and intention, even in moments of uncertainty. Self-talk plays a critical role in shaping confidence because it directly influences perception of ability. When individuals repeatedly tell themselves that they are capable of learning, adapting, and improving, the mind begins to accept these statements as truth. This acceptance reduces hesitation and fear, making action more accessible. Over time, small actions taken under uncertainty accumulate into experience. Experience then reinforces belief, creating a cycle where confidence grows steadily rather than appearing suddenly. This process is deliberate and requires consistency, not emotional highs. Waiting to feel confident often leads to avoidance. Opportunities are delayed, challenges are postponed, and growth is restricted. In contrast, individuals who speak confidence into existence act despite discomfort. Their self-talk does not deny fear, it reframes it. They acknowledge nervousness while reminding themselves of preparation, effort, and potential. This internal dialogue provides stability, allowing them to move forward without needing perfect conditions. Confidence becomes a result of action, supported by constructive self-communication. Professional environments highlight this reality clearly. High-performing individuals are rarely free from doubt, but they manage it effectively. Their confidence is rooted in preparation, self-trust, and consistent internal reinforcement. Before important tasks, they mentally affirm their readiness and capability. After setbacks, they remind themselves of progress and learning. This ongoing internal reinforcement strengthens self-belief and reduces reliance on external approval. Confidence becomes internally sourced, making it more resilient under pressure. Confidence built through self-talk also enhances decision-making. When individuals trust themselves, they are less likely to overanalyze or seek constant validation. They can evaluate situations objectively and commit to decisions with clarity. Even when outcomes are uncertain, they remain composed because their confidence is not tied to perfection but to adaptability. This flexibility allows them to adjust course without losing self-respect or motivation. Over time, this decisiveness further strengthens confidence through repeated proof of capability. Another important aspect is consistency. Confidence is not created through occasional motivation, but through daily reinforcement. Small internal statements repeated regularly gradually shape belief. Statements focused on effort, growth, and responsibility strengthen mental discipline. Over time, these statements feel natural and authentic. Confidence stops feeling like an act and becomes part of identity. This transformation occurs not through dramatic change, but through steady internal alignment with purposeful language. Building confidence through self-talk also impacts presence and communication. When individuals believe in themselves, it reflects in posture, tone, and clarity. They speak with intention and listen with openness. This presence influences how others respond, often leading to increased trust and respect. However, the foundation remains internal. External validation may enhance confidence temporarily, but lasting confidence comes from the internal commitment to support oneself through both success and failure. Change often feels overwhelming because people associate it with long timelines and dramatic effort. The idea of transforming habits, mindset, or direction can seem intimidating, leading many to postpone action indefinitely. However, meaningful change does not always require months or years to begin. A focused commitment over a short, defined IOD can create powerful momentum. 7 days of intentional self-talk may appear insignificant, yet it is long enough to interrupt old patterns and introduce a new internal rhythm. When practiced with consistency, even a week can shift perspective and set a new direction. The human mind responds strongly to structure and clarity. A 7-day commitment creates a clear boundary that feels achievable rather than exhausting. This clarity reduces resistance and increases follow-through. When individuals commit to speaking to themselves with purpose for a limited time, they become more aware of their internal dialogue. Awareness alone initiates change. Old patterns of negativity, doubt, or self-criticism become noticeable, allowing conscious correction. Each corrected thought weakens the old habit and strengthens a new one. During this period, self-talk becomes a daily practice rather than an occasional reaction. Individuals begin to replace automatic negative responses with intentional, constructive language. This repetition is critical. The mind does not change through intention alone, it changes through repeated exposure. Over 7 days, the consistent use of empowering language begins to feel less forced and more natural. The internal environment becomes calmer and more focused, allowing individuals to respond to challenges with greater clarity. This short-term commitment also produces emotional benefits. As internal resistance decreases, stress levels often drop. Encouraging self-talk reduces internal conflict and creates a sense of alignment. Individuals experience increased motivation not because circumstances have changed, but because their relationship with themselves has improved. This emotional shift increases energy and engagement, making it easier to take action. Small wins during the week reinforce belief, further strengthening the impact of the practice. Behavioral changes often follow internal shifts. When individuals speak to themselves with confidence and intention, they are more likely to take constructive action. Procrastination decreases as self-doubt loses its grip. Decision-making becomes clearer because internal noise is reduced. Over 7 days, these small behavioral adjustments accumulate, creating visible progress. This progress, however modest, reinforces the value of the practice and encourages continuation beyond the initial commitment. Another significant impact of a 7-day focus is increased self-trust. By consistently supporting oneself internally, individuals prove that they can be reliable in their own growth. This reliability strengthens confidence and reduces dependence on external motivation. The realization that internal support can be cultivated intentionally is empowering. It shifts responsibility inward, where control is strongest. This sense of ownership often marks the beginning of sustained personal development. Direction changes not through sudden transformation, but through consistent alignment. 7 days of intentional self-talk align thoughts, emotions, and actions toward growth. While the external world may remain unchanged, the internal compass begins to point differently. This internal shift influences future decisions, reactions, and goals. What starts as a short experiment becomes a foundation for long-term improvement, demonstrating that meaningful change often begins with a simple, focused commitment. So today, make a commitment. Just 7 days. No negativity toward yourself. No harsh words. Speak to yourself with clarity, courage, and compassion. If you fall, lift yourself. If you doubt, reassure yourself. Because the most important conversation of your life is the one happening inside your head. Change that conversation and you will change your direction. Talk to yourself like a winner for 7 days and watch how a new version of you begins to rise. Thank you.